Hello and welcome back to the channel. So have you got a Helix and ever wondered if you can plug it into your amplifier? Well, that's kind of what we're going to explore a little bit today. I have my Helix here with me and I have a gig coming up in a couple of months in a pub, so it may not be on any monitors, although I actually might have the option of having that, strangely, for a pub gig. But anyway, I'm going to assume that I'm not. And I'm thinking about using the Helix because the sounds on there are kind of set, and I'd like to try and get those sounds on this gig as well. But if I'm not going to be on any monitors, I'll have to monitor it somehow. I have a power cab which I can use, and I've done a video on that, which you can check out. But I wanted to see if I could plug my Helix into the effects loop of my amplifier, essentially using my amp as a power. I'm using the power section of my amp, and essentially using it for the power section. This does mean that it bypasses the preamp section, so all of your tone controls on your amp, your treble, mid, and bass and drive controls are not going to be functional because we've bypassed it and gone straight to the preamp section. So your master volume will be all that. You can just control the volume with your master volume knob. So one reason why you might want to plug your Helix into the effects loop of your amp is because you need to use it live. And if you haven't got something like a power cab or an FR speaker that you can plug into, or if you want to use the tubes, aka the valves, in your amp because you heard that it's a better tone, you might want to do that, then this method is pretty good. You can get separate power sections. The Seymour Duncan one springs to mind. I don't know what model it is, but that's the one that springs to mind, which you can connect. You can basically, that's the middleman that connects your Helix to your speaker, to your cab, if you haven't got an amplifier. But if you've got an amplifier, you can plug into the effects loop and use the power section from your amp in this way, therefore amplifying yourself without having to use any monitors or any kind of monitor system. You're just using your Helix essentially like a real amp. So that is what we're going to look at in this video. We're not going to look into the full cable method or anything fancy like that. We could do it in another video. I've kind of looked at it before as well, but I'm using my new D20 amp from Rev to try this out, and I have my Hughes & Kettner cab here, which to be honest isn't the best cab for the job, but it is the only 2x12 cab that I have and is the one I may end up using on this gig that I'm doing. So throughout this video you'll see a bunch of presets that I've created over the last year or maybe a couple of years since the channel started, or since I started doing the Helix content. So they are available on the custom tone part of the Line 6 website if you want to download them yourself, if you like the sound of them. Now you'll be hearing these through like an ambient room mic. I could have closed mic the speaker, but I decided to try and capture what it sounded like in the room. So there is a mic capturing the sound in the room, and that's what you're going to be hearing in a little bit. But if you do like any of those tones and want like a clean version of them, I've done videos on I think most of or probably all of the ones that you're going to see, and you can download them for free on the custom tone part of the Helix website. There will be a link in the description below. If you do download any of them, they are for free, but if you do like any of them or want to give something back, you can buy me a coffee. Link for that is also in the description. That's essentially like a little kindly donation from yourself, so I can kind of keep this channel going, and it does help. So yeah, links for that in the description below. It's not a literal coffee, but I do drink coffee, so yes, if I ever see you, you can buy me a real coffee if you want, but you don't have to. Anyway, I think that's everything I want to say right now. So please feel free to like this video if you do like it at any point, and subscribe would be great. But anyway, let me stop yapping and let's get into some tones. So here is my Helix. It is plugged out of the 1/4 inch out in the back, just in mono this time, so out of the left/mono into the effects loop of my Rev D20 amplifier. And we're starting with a patch that I use all the time, the JCM 800 patch. It's probably the one I use the most. And yeah, let's check it out. Start with the clean snapshot. Yeah, sounds pretty good. Right, let's go through some of these snapshots. That was the clean. Let's try the pushed. That sounds pretty good, actually. Solo. Yeah, I'm feeling that. That sounds really good. So my amp is currently on about 11 o'clock. The volume's on 11 o'clock. None of the other, this is, I don't know if you can see this, but this knob here is the master volume. All the other knobs are not going to make any difference because I'm just plugging directly into the effects loop. So bypassing all of these ones, all of these, you know, the treble, the mid, and the bass, and the gain controls. So all I'm really needing to get sound out of this is the master volume. And let me just remember where I am. If I turn it up, you can hear it gets louder. As for the Helix, I've currently set my volume to about 11 o'clock here as well, coincidentally. And the reason I did that, I usually have it around about 2 or 3 o'clock when I'm going direct into the mixer. But part of me is afraid that I'm going to do something bad to my amp by turning it up too high. So it seemed quite loud. It seemed louder than my amp this amp normally goes when I use it just as a regular amp. So I thought, let me bring it down a bit. First of all, I brought it down to about midday. Then I thought about 11 o'clock's good, and if necessary, I might turn it up. But just to not harm my amp in any way. I don't know if I would, but it's just that kind of cautious side of me that's making me leave this master volume knob on the Helix at about 11 o'clock. There is, you probably can't see this on this camera here, especially if my guitar's in the way. There is a light here, an LED, which flashes red when it's overloaded. I'm not sure if that means if the input signal is being overloaded. I kind of hope it does, because if it flashes, then I know that I'm pushing too much signal into it. But I've seen it go off before, but not while I'm doing this experiment, just with normal use, and nothing seems to have happened. But just to let you guys know as well, in case you're using this amp too. Right, let's try another patch. Let's go to the Deluxe Reverb, Fender Deluxe Reverb. Let's try the pushed. Noticing a lot more bass coming from this, but I think it's the speaker. That's the issue I have with this speaker. This isn't the cabinet that I want to use with this amplifier. I want to get something more suited for this amp. This one's very bassy, which is kind of nice for the rock stuff and when you're on stage. But generally, this is a bit too bassy, maybe even a bit too much top end at times as well. But this is the amp. This is the cab I have with me to use, so I'm going to use it. This cab has a Celestion greenbacks in it, in two of them in the back of it, by the way, just in case you're wondering. I've got my lead TS. TS stands for Tube Screamer, so this is just basically a lead sound with a tube screamer. You can hear the hum already. Fuzz. bass out. Right, let's try another patch. Oh, Vox. Let's try the Vox AC30 patch. Here's the clean. Give it a bit more. Here's a push. What should we do? Crunch. Let's keep going. What else can we find? Oh, interesting. This is my Nuno Bettencourt 3 sides to every story patch, where he used an SLO. Let's start with the rhythm channel. I'm not going to play every single patch I've got, but here we go. I've been enjoying the Princeton over the last few months. I say the Princeton patch that I've made. I've been enjoying the amp, the Princeton amp on the Helix. It's actually a really nice amp. The original amp, the actual amp is really nice as well. Anyway. You can really hear that room reverb I put in there. And if that room reverb's too much for you, you can always, if you download this, you can always turn it down. I quite like it, especially if you're in a mix. You can't really hear the reverb that you think you've got. So let's turn up a bit. Fuzz face. And here's my filth snapshot. It's essentially the fuzz face one, but with, what has it got? Extra. It's got the delay and a bit of more gain from the Minotaur, from the clon. I remember that being inspired in part by guitarists like Joey Landreth and Ariel Posen, both amazing guitar players, and I love their tone. A bit of John Mayer. have to get a little fluff right at the very end there. So looking at this setup again, I kind of confused myself with what I'd done here. So if you're equally confused, maybe check out the video that I did on my John Mayer patch, and yeah, it will explain. I kind of figured out what I was thinking at the time, and yeah, that's what the video is good for explaining what the setup is like. It's actually quite interesting if I remember correctly. But anyway, let's try some Qtron. Some Brian May. Yes, the Brian May one confused me as well, which is ironic because it's actually a very simple setup. You'll notice that there's all these extra snapshots down here that aren't being used. The only one I added was the Brighton Rock one, and the reason I didn't fill these in was because Brian May's setup, from what I remember from the research I did, is essentially quite simple. He's just got his sound, and apparently the chorus is always on. I think that's why that was on when I turned onto the snapshot onto the patch. And he just controls everything with his volume knob. So, and then just kind of steps on a couple of effects that he might have. So yeah, the Brighton Rock one's just radically different. So I've added that. I probably could have filled it up with some more if I wanted to, but I'm going to just use it the way Brian May uses it, as far as I understand. So what did you think of the Helix going directly into the effects loop of the amplifier, particularly of my Rev D20? I haven't tried it with other amps, not properly anyway. I'd be interested to know what it sounds like through other amps. I thought it sounded quite good through the Rev and through this speaker. I would like to get a different speaker, as I've said already. I think it would just be the final piece that's missing for me. But the tones are actually really good because they sound good in my ears when I use the Helix on gigs or I want in-ear monitors, and it sounds very similar to what I'm hearing through the speaker in the room. So I was very pleasantly surprised, and at some points where there was a bit too much bass, but I think that was coming from the cabinet as opposed to the preset. So I also did try it through the front end just as a little experiment when I was just playing around earlier on, and it actually sounded really horrible. So it just hurt the ears. It really wasn't very nice. I mean, if I was going to do it that way, I'd probably go with the 4 cable method, and I wouldn't use the cabinet block on the Helix as well as the one the cabinet and the power section in the amp as well. I'd probably just run it without just the amp on the Helix going into the front. Going into the effects loop and putting all the effects, such as the drives and so on, and compressors into the front of the amp. So that's 4 cable method. So that would be something else to try at some point. But just taking your sound, your presets from the Helix and plugging it into your amp, at least into the amp I've got here, sounds pretty good through the effects loop. I have to admit, it sounds pretty good. The noise was pretty low as well. I'm sure I tried this before with my Victory amp. Love the amp, but I remember it being really noisy. But I think that was the 4 cable method, so that'd be interesting to try with this amp as well to see if it would work. Interesting. So what do you think? Is this something that you might want to do? Because maybe you haven't got a power cab. Maybe you want to use your Helix Live, but you're not sure how to amplify it. This might be one way of doing it. Anyway, leave any questions and comments in the comment section below, and I will see you in next week's video. Take care.